Hi, and welcome to ALG Talks. I'm Wes, and I'll be hosting a number of podcasts, giving you a real insight into ALG. Each episode will focus on a topic and involve me asking questions to a member of the ALG staff, where the listeners can submit questions to be asked on the episode's topic. So, what better way to kick off with a subject that's on everyone's mind than safeguarding? And the person I'll be asking these questions to is none other than Nigel Miller, the Group MD of ALG. So, hello Nigel.
Hello Wes.
So, first of all, the first question I'd like to open up with is, what does safeguarding mean to you?
Ultimately, it's about protecting children from maltreatment, preventing impairment of children's health and development, and ensuring that children are growing up in circumstances consistent with the provision of safe and effective care. Taking action to enable that all children have the best outcomes.
Brilliant. So how does that fit into the ALG business model, and how does ALG make itself a caring and safe organisation?
ALG is basically a group of companies and brands which deliver amazing outdoor experiences to literally thousands of young people. Because of that, at the heart of everything we do is about looking after and taking care of those young people in our possession at any time. And as the group has grown from originally super camps and into bushcraft, safeguarding becomes an even more important area. And we're privileged to have lots of young people come into our camps and our businesses every single year, and it's important that we create a caring and a safe, whilst an inspiring environment for them to experience. What is really important is that everybody in the organisation is aware about safeguarding, and we try and enable this by training everybody in the business, the seasonal staff who come in on an annual basis, and regularly updating our permanent staff with changes in legislation and best practice, and also really passing down the experiences of situations that we've encountered during our operating season, so everybody is continually learning. And I think that is the key point, that this is not a subject that you learn once and then for the rest of your career you work to those standards. Things are changing, things are moving on as the knowledge base increases. So it's vitally important that everybody is on a continually, a process of continual learning.
Brilliant. So obviously, with that all in mind, what do you think professionals face regarding challenges in today's world when looking after children?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the complexity of the world we live in today adds great challenges in this area. The access to the online community and the effects that this could have on children's well-being. I think economic pressures, which is causing lots more children to live in poverty. Also, I think that the onus on people throughout all types of organisations, be they voluntary organisations, schools, or companies like ourselves, that the pressure is on the companies and the management and the employees within those companies to be vigilant at all times and acting as the main source of reporting of these incidents. So I think there's a general scrutiny and pressure that we are all under. We've all got a heightened level of the level that we're expected to be at in terms of our knowledge of safeguarding. Which is all good. It means that there's a lot more people aware, a lot more people looking for the signs of abuse, and then ultimately reporting that up to the relevant authorities. And ultimately, the most important thing is action then being taken to resolve the situation.
What are ALG's plans to maintain and improve child protection within it?
We've spent an awful lot of time in the last 2 years improving our systems and processes, so bringing our procedures in line with Cognita, who obviously being a world-class schools organisation, operate at an extremely high level of professionalism within this area, and we have been bringing ALG and each of the businesses in line with that gold standard. Secondly, the introduction of CPOMs in the last year and the work that you've been doing, Wes, in this area has been fundamental in tightening down the recording, because that's the key part. If you spot any abuse, how that is then handled, the speed, the completeness of all the information that's gathered is vitally important to make sure that that the situation can ultimately successfully be handled. So I think, policy and procedure and the standards, but I think the main part of it, of what we've done and what we'll aim to do going forward, is training. And there's been a significant investment in training in the last year. But as I said at the start of this podcast, this is not a one-off exercise, and it's something that we need to do and we will continuously do on an annual basis as our people come back in. So you may have been working for an ALG business for a number of years, but you will be going through the same training as the new recruits are each year, because it's so important that, one, the skills stay sharp in this area, and two, you stay abreast of any changes in policy, and three, that the experience that we've had within our business and the wider safeguarding community is relayed back to you to improve our standards.
Brilliant. You touched on changes going forward. Obviously, in regard to policies and going into the new school year, what policy changes do you see happening?
There's been quite a lot around honour-based abuse, where we'll have a sub-policy within the main safeguarding policy. This is going to incorporate things such as breast ironing, FMG, and forced marriage, to name but a few. We'll also be launching, ready for the late 2019 season, our wellbeing drive. This is going to focus on low mood and self-esteem for children, and looking at supporting seasonal and permanent staff within ALG.
Brilliant. When's that going to be launched, Nigel?
It'll be in October 2019.
Oh, brilliant. That sounds really, really good. So, obviously, with these podcasts now, we actually ask some people to obviously help offer some questions and give you some, so hopefully you can give some answers off the back of that. So we've got a couple now there. So the first one is, what opportunities for training are planned for the new and existing staff in 2020?
So basically, the new and the existing staff will go through the same procedure. In the past, it would have been that staff were trained up in the safeguarding procedure, and then this would be, that would be the training they receive. What we do now is everybody goes through this. Permanent staff will be updated and refreshed on an annual basis, and all our seasonal staff will go through all our safeguarding procedure training on an annual basis as they re-enter the business.
Brilliant. And there's another question that's come in. Just a bit, obviously, some stats here. How many concerns have been raised in the last 12 months within ALG's brands?
Well, it's just over 200 so far, which I know does sound an awful lot of concerns, but I think it's really synonymous with the greater awareness of the subject, greater knowledge and training of the staff. People are more aware, one, of what abuse looks like, and secondly, on what to do when you spot potential abuse on there. So I think when that happens and people are more aware, there's more training, the systems are sharper, you're going to get a greater amount of reporting. Does that mean that there's more safeguarding issues, or it's a less safe place from safeguarding issues? No, it doesn't. I think it just means that everybody's more aware and it's a lot sharper on reporting.
And obviously, just one from me, a question. Obviously, we've spoken over the many months that we've taken this further. Is what kind of trends can you see from the concerns raised?
Well, we're certainly seeing a lot of concerns around self-harm, especially in ages 12 and 14, which is a real concern. I think there's a general picture that children are showing signs of well-being issues, and these are just not being addressed at school. And I think some of that is around just their general mood, their general appearance, cleanliness, hygiene on there. It's a challenging time for a lot of people at the minute. Economically, the country is under a lot of pressure, and that is definitely being seen in the children coming through through the camps and the situations that we're experiencing.
And obviously, from your years of practice within this industry, various businesses and everything throughout your career, do you see more abuse towards children in the modern day than you did, say, 10, 15 years ago?
No, I don't think so. I think it is all about we're more aware, we're more knowledgeable, we're more able to report. So the ability to spot cases, and two, knowing then what to do with it, is far greater than when I started off in these industries 20 years ago. It was like in the whole safety area, it was more around the physical safety, doing the activities, rather than the individual's safety and looking for situations that arrive onto a camp or arrive onto a course rather than happen on a course. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So in terms of, a child turns up at a camp with a situation, we are spotting that and reporting it. It's not something that's happened on the camp. And in the past, it would have all been around making the environment of the camp safe, rather than being part of a broader system to protect that child as they pass through your camp or course.
So there's more of an awareness now. We're more aware of those issues coming on to. Brilliant. A couple more questions from people from the audience, so to speak. This is a bit of a two-parter, Nigel. So what would you do if you were concerned about a colleague's behaviour towards a child? Like I said, it's a two-parter. Have you ever experienced it? And how, if you did, have you dealt with it?
I personally have never experienced that on a camp. But in terms of, you would obviously report. You would deal with a situation at the point of spotting that, and then report it through the right channels and the right process. I think what is important with this is that we're saying we've got more incidents being reported because we do report more incidents, and it is making sure better to report and better to raise the issue up the line rather than trying to filter that out at the point of what you see. If you've got a concern, you should raise that concern rather than sort of casting a judgment at the first instance on that. But fortunately, I've never seen that on a camp myself. I'm working, but that's how I would handle it if that situation arises.
And you've also got loads of support mechanisms within the community, like the local authority designated officer who can help with this and works very closely with the company. Exactly. And from my point of view, it's dealing with it in a systematic approach that's conducive to our procedures. We've dealt with a few this year where that's actually happened, and we've dealt with it professionally, and that's the key, is to deal with it professionally underneath the policy and procedures outlined, which we all agree on yearly on that. So this is another question. I think you've touched on it a little bit during this podcast, Nigel, but I think this person just wants like a specific question around it. What has been basically your win or wins for this year in regarding to safeguarding?
I think the introduction of CPOMs is probably singly the biggest win, because I think in the past we've focused a lot of effort on gathering the information and making sure everything is complete and accurate, rather than spending all our effort and focus on the actual situation at hand. With CPOMs, it's robust. It means the information is complete, it's accurate, and it's quick. The information is in the right person's hands at the right time to make the right judgment. So I think that has been a huge win for us this year. I also think it's not just so much this year. I do think the training is a key part. I mean, we started increasing our training a couple of years ago, and that's continued at pace this last year, and will continue going forward. So I think we've got now the right policies, procedures, systems, and then the training of the people to be able to use all the tools available for them in regards to safeguarding.
Absolutely, and I think my win, if I'm allowed to answer this as well, is obviously been CPOMs. It's made it loads easier, but for me, it's actually like how quickly everyone can see the information and the kind of like collaborative approach that we can take. It's been a lot easier for me in charge, like looking after safeguarding across the board. It's been a massive help with speaking to people at source within within minutes of this concern being raised has been so much beneficial for reporting of one, and also obviously getting the right outcome for that particular child and the family. And obviously you spoke about the wins there, Nigel, but what can we learn, and obviously what have you highlighted from the last 12 months, 2 years, 3 years that ALG need to learn from or can work on maybe?
I just don't think it's an area that you can take your eye off the ball for any moment. I think we've got the foundations in place now. What is important and what a strength that we've got is twofold. One, we're part of an international schools group, each of which has got a safeguarding community with Incognita. You've also got all the different companies across Active Learning Group. There's a huge pool of knowledge there. There's a huge pool of experience. And I think as we continue to learn and draw on that knowledge and improve our systems and our training and ultimately the effectiveness of our safeguarding process, the effectiveness of our people, I think that is how we'll continue to keep moving forward in this area.
Brilliant. Well, that's all the questions, Nigel, that I have, and also the rest of the staff have. So, but before you go, I'd quite like to know what your top tips are for safeguarding, not just within ALG, but if, like, obviously we have a lot of young professionals that work for us that go on to the wider world within children, or even, with their siblings or just families. What would be your top tips?
I think you just need to be aware. Be aware at all times, and then more importantly, people shouldn't be afraid to report. In a lot of organisations, as you know, Wes, I am heavily involved in football teams at the weekend, and safeguarding is obviously a key part of football. It's been through a challenging time, and as a result of that, the whole process has been beefed up in that area. So, in the past, potentially people wouldn't have thought it was their job to notify. And so my view on this now is be vigilant. If in doubt, if you've got a doubt, report to the designated safeguarding lead, but be it in your company, within your department, or any organisation that you are in. I mean, ultimately, how do you help the child the most is by spotting the signs, reporting the signs, and getting action to that child as quickly as possible.
Brilliant. Well, Nigel, thank you very much. I know you're mega busy, and it's always nice to have these chats, and I know you agree that safeguarding is a shall we say, a hot topic, but it always will be throughout the operation for ALG. So I thank you very much for popping in and joining us today. So guys, thank you for listening to ALG Talks with Wes and Nigel for our first episode. If you like what you hear and want to know more, please comment below. That can be any questions about safeguarding. We can get them answered, but please comment below. So join us next time where we look into another topic which will be released in the next week and the data of the podcast being shown. So please get commenting below with any ideas or questions that you would like to be asked. Thank you very much.